Hello everybody! We are going to be doing more Python programming. Actually, let me do this. I will open up the chat on my phone so that way if there's anybody that has any questions, I can see right away. As we are programming, I have to open up the app and search for myself really quick, so that we can see the stream. I have it almost there. Sorry, guys. Okay, I have the stream so I can get any questions that you guys might have. But, yeah, let's take a look. So we're going to be generating Polygon primitives with Python. This is kind of a quick example that I was testing out. We're going to be creating the Polygon primitives on the screen and then spacing them across the screen. So typically, let's open up this window and break off the tab. We'll be creating a Polygon primitive here, and then we'll see in the code kind of what the line of code for that particular primitive is, so that we can kind of interpret it, what it's going to be for our Python code. So when we're using Maya commands, we do want to start off by importing the Maya commands as MC. And then we can start creating things. So we can see that the line of code for the sphere is polysphere. So we can try mc.polysphere. We can run this code, and it does create a polysphere for us. We do have some tags that can, or some arguments that can actually be pretty useful for us. So if we highlight that and look at the command documentation, we can see the different things that we can adjust right here. So we have the axis, UVs, radius, things like that. What we're going to be using today, common during creation, is the name, really the only thing that we want to use. So we'll close that out. And we will add the name. So inside of here, we would do something like name equals, and then the name is a string, so we have to put it in quotes. It'll be, we can give it a name, let's say just dog. It doesn't matter really what it's called. And we generate the sphere. When we look at the name of the sphere, it is called dog. That is great. So let's go in and create the next primitive, which is a cube. So when we look at the history for the cube, we can see that it's called polycube. Polycube, and we can name this as well. Cat. So here we can see that we see the sphere, but we don't see the cube. Hey, BK42, how are you doing? I hope you're having a great morning, or actually, it's probably afternoon for you. So the sphere is a sphere here. The cube is actually here, but it is hidden behind the inside of the sphere. So that's why we couldn't see it. So we'll want to be able to move things as we go along so that we can see everything. If we move things, we can do that by using the move command. I really don't like doing that too often because it will give us relative values for the move. What I usually prefer to do that gives us a lot more control is doing a set adder. So we can actually get the name of the object and then translate that particular channel. So in this case, we're moving it along the Z. I'll probably move it along the X instead of Z though. And then the value we want to change it to. So if we wanted to change it to 5, we can see that that's what that changes there. Oops. So let's get rid of all this, and we'll add that line of code for our polycube. Be mc.setAdder. And then the name of the object is going to be cat.translateX, and then comma and the amount that we want to change it by. And I'm just going to change everything by 5 units, so it's going to be 5. So now if we run this code here, we can see that we have the 2 objects created and one's not inside of the other, and it is spaced out so that we can see it easily. I want to go through the list over here for all the primitives and create them. It should be pretty quick, but there's going to be a few tricky ones, and when we get to them, we'll take a look at how we'll figure out what they are. And especially the new ones. I haven't really looked up. I looked up disk right now, but there might be some issues with some of these green primitives. I'll probably create up to the soccer ball. The green ones, the reason that they're green is that they're brand new for Maya 2018, and I've only had Maya 2018 on my computer for like 3 days. So I haven't really spent time to look up all the code for each one of those primitives, but I can show you guys how I would find a command if I am missing it. So the next one would be polycylinder. And then let's call this, since you are in the chat, we'll call it BK42. And we got to tell it that that's going to be the name. There you go. It creates that. And then now we need to do the set adder. It's Karen. It's maybe complicated, I guess, when you start looking at it, but this is pretty easy code. This is the second tutorial in a series of tutorials for learning Python code inside of Maya. So pretty easy stuff relatively, but it does look complicated for anybody that hasn't been doing it for a while, I guess. So I'm going to tell BK42 translate X to move 10 units. So that's another 5 units, and it should space them out evenly. There we go. So now we have that cylinder, and it's easy to see. It's spaced out appropriately. And expand this so that we can see a little bit more. And maybe what I'll do is copy these lines and paste them. Maya is pretty intimidating. It can be. I mean, I've been doing Maya since about 2000. So Maya is pretty natural to me right now, but if you're getting new to it, and I teach it at college, so you can see that there's actually a bit of a learning curve at the beginning, but once you get past that initial learning curve, it can actually get pretty easy. So the next shape we're going to call it is going to be Karen. I'm just going to put people's names in the chat for the names of the objects. What's the purpose of programming inside of a 3D application? There's a few different reasons you might want to program inside of a 3D application. So let's test that. Cool, that's that. And we'll do one more unit. So it's going to be 15. Go. A lot of it is to do a repetitive task over and over. So if you need to do something that is very repetitive over and over, it could save you a lot of time because the programming will allow you to do that repetitive task really quickly and save you a lot of time. So when I used to work at a studio called Image Metrics, one of the tools that we were using all the time is a face rig generator, where we would connect all of the skeleton and the rig and the assets that we needed for a face, because we would be working on potentially like hundreds of faces for a video game or a movie that we wanted to generate rigs for. And if we were to do it all by hand, that could be maybe about a day's worth of work. But by using the scripts that we had, we could actually cut that down to at most 15 minutes. So when you can save that much time doing a repetitive task over and over again with a script that you just write once, that could be pretty powerful inside of a production workflow. So that's one reason that you might want to use a programming inside of a 3D application. There's a lot of other kind of cool things that you can do with it. Generating randomness inside of your scene. So creating things like trees or laying out rocks inside of an environment, and you want to do it in a random fashion, you can do that with code. Karen says she's going to stick with filming and editing. Yeah, I like filming and editing because it's pretty intuitive and you can do it quickly. That's the main thing that I like about it, is that you can output that work really, really quickly. And you don't have much like I can't do a whole 3D project that's complicated inside of a day, where I can actually film and edit something like that in a day. So this is going to be a torus, and we're going to move Karen's primitive 20 units across. So the torus did not move 20 units. That's because there's two of them in the scene, so there should maybe be one over there. Nope. Let's delete everything and try running this code again. See if it moves. Oh, I already named the cone Karen, that's why. So is there anybody else in the chat? It does not look like it, so I'm going to use my name. There you go. So if we clear everything out, we should have that all spaced properly. There we go. Oops. So we have the cone made. We need a plane. And we can call this CGI Nerd. So while I'm working on this, if you guys want to throw out some names, since there's nobody else in the chat right now, of primitives that I can call, because I got quite a few more that I need to create, that would be helpful. There we go. The plane is created here, all the way at the end. The next one that might be difficult is the disk, because I don't think it's going to pop up the way these are so far. So these have been pretty intuitive because it starts off poly and then the name of the primitive. Let's try that with the disk and see if it works, which it may or may not work. We will see. Karen says she only uses Vegas Pro and a bit of Photoshop. Yep. Any names for this? Yeah, CG is kind of like a tool for doing things, but it's not. I mean, you can make a whole film in CG, I guess. I've mostly worked in VFX, but I have worked in some full 3D videos. So this is going to be 30 units. Do we have a name for this? A, B, C, C, A, D, A, abracadabra? I think that's kind of what it is. So let's type in what Mumbo. Let's do Mambo. That one's easier. Oops. So let's clear out all of this geometry and run this. Looks like Mambo worked. So what is a disk? Because I have not generated one of these before, and I'm kind of curious to see what that primitive is. Let me just clear everything out and create the disk. That does not look like what I had at the end. Did I not change the name? Nope, I created another polyplane, that's why. Polydisk. Let's generate everything, and it gives us an error. And it says line 2 is where the error is happening, but it actually is not. That is kind of crazy because I know line 2 is working. It is just the end. So it says the name flag is not working. And I think this is where the issue of the disk starts happening, is just that it's confused with what the disk actually is. So let's select everything here, and we will create the disk again and see what the code here says. So when it creates the code, instead of just being poly disk, it says create Polygon disk. So let's try that and see if it actually works. And it starts with a capital, so create Polygon disk. Polygon disk. There we go. So we can run this, and we do have an error again. Line 15, set adder, name Mambo. No objects match that. So let's see what happened with that disk. we have the disk selected, and it is called pdisk. So let's see what happened with that. Let's select everything and delete it. Penny is another good name, so let's try that next. But let's get Mambo working. So when I just run this line of code by itself, what happens? Creates this, does not change the name. So let's check the command documentation and see if there's something special in the name. So this line of code is very new. It does not have any command documentation for it yet. So that is going to be tricky if we cannot find assign a name to it. So let's see if we actually change the name here and see what happens. It says we're doing a rename because it's not creating it as we generate it. So I might have to use that line of code for right now, although that's probably not the best way to do it. That is what I am actually going to do. So we're going to add another line of code, rename. The first thing we need to choose is the thing we want to rename, pdisk1, and what we want to rename it to. It's going to be Mambo. Hi, bot. How are you this morning? So I'm going to remove this flag here because it is not working with this new primitive type. But we can rename it here. So let's delete this geometry and rerun this. So now we can see we have the Mambo name that is being generated. So just to save a little bit time and not have to select everything and delete it over and over again, at the beginning I'm going to add a little bit of code. Again, this is kind of like what we were talking about, BK42, that the scripting can just, for the most part, save you time. So what I'm going to do is do mc.select, and I'm going to tell it that I want to select everything. So it's going to be select all equals true. And then mc.delete. So now every time I run this code, you'll see that it doesn't create extra geometry. It deletes everything first and then it recreates it. So that way we have a little bit of time saving, so I don't have to go back and forth and delete everything over and over again. So let's see, after disk we have the Platonic Solid. This might be another issue, so let's try mc. Actually, let's create it and see what the code is. Polyplatonic. So it's not exactly the name in the script. Polyplatonic. There we go. And let's see if we can name this one. Name equals, oops, equals, and we'll name it bot since bot is in the chat now. And we'll move this over. Bot, and we'll move this 35 units. Okay, have a good day at work, BK42. So run this, and we do end up with an error. It says line 2 invalid, string type, probably saying name. Yep. And even though it says line 2, it is this line right here that is invalid. And we can see that it reads it as a command, and it's probably just an issue because it is such a new feature inside of Maya 2018 that it's just not working yet. If somebody else knows why it is not working, let me know in the chat or in the comments section if you see it afterwards. But you can see as I look for the command documentation, it doesn't exist. It can't find it. We could also try going into the command reference here for Python code, and we can try. So here we can see it has Platonic Solid. So it's using the command that we had. Let's make sure that that's the same command that we use. Let's see. So over here it says polyplatonic, and it highlights like if it's a command, but we're actually probably going to need polyplatonic solid. So let's run all this. There we go. Now that worked. So we got past that hurdle. And that's, like I said, this is Maya 2018, and anything in green are new commands that are new features that didn't exist in the previous version. So all of that documentation might not be updated, and there might be some differences in how they're being created. Okay, have a good day, Karen. I hope you have a good day. Have fun today. Okay, so I'm going to copy and paste this down in the next line, and we're going to try the next thing, which is going to be a pyramid. So Pyramid. That looks like it works. We got to change the name. We'll call it Penny because I don't think there's anybody new in the chat. And we'll move this 40 units. Run it. Cool, Penny seems to be working. I don't have any errors, and the pyramid is there at the end. Go down one more line and paste that code. The next thing that we have is going to be a prism. If you guys have any ideas for names, put them down in the chat so that way I can come up with names. Prism. And so far I have no names. I might have just not giving you guys enough advance notice. We'll name this Bob. Bob the Prism. This is going to be 45 units. Cool. The prism worked. Next line, paste. Again, any names that you guys want me to call things, let me know. So we have Helix next. So Helix, probably most of the ones that are not in green, they should be pretty standard. This is going to be 50. And we got to give it a name. No names yet. So we will call this John. You have to be careful with the casing because Python is case sensitive. Run this. Cool. The Helix worked. Now let's go into gear. The gear is green, so it's a new feature. So it's probably going to cause us a little bit of issues. So let's try gear, and we can see that the poly gear does highlight over, so it might work, but I doubt it. Let's say we call this spam. And this will be 55 units over. So here you can see, even though the command looks like it is a real command, maybe in the future they plan to change it to that, it doesn't work right now. We can look at the command reference and we can see that it doesn't have any command available for us. We can try creating a gear and see what command it uses. So here we can see that it uses polygear, which does not work because we're using it right now. So we can open the command reference. So the Python Polygon or Python command reference. And here we can search maybe gear. And it doesn't find anything in the code. Create doesn't come up with anything. So pgear, it does create polygear right here. Let's try something like this one where it says create polygon disk. We're gonna try create polygon gear, and that turns highlighted color, so that seems promising. Does have a unique name. It still gave us an error. This time is lane 29. So it did create the gear. That's awesome. What is wrong with line 29? No object matches that. So it's going to be the same issue that we had when we did the Platonic disk, where the command is just not working properly right now. It doesn't have all the flags and everything. So we're going to have to rename it right afterwards, rather than creating the name inside of the flag. So let's not create this name here. And by default, it's going to be pgear1. And we are 55 units. So let's run this and see if we get any errors. We got line 30. Oh, I named it Mambo, which is not what I want. I want to name it Spam. There we go. Everything works perfectly now, so that is good. And the soccer ball will be the last one that we create today. So let's do mc.poly soccer ball, and we can see that doesn't read as a command. Oops. Soccer ball. So the soccer ball is not what it is named. Let's see when we create it. It's calling polyprimitive for the soccer ball, which is this shape over here. Oh, so which one is that? It's called bot. No, that's the Platonic Solid. So let's see if we can do polyprimitive for the soccer ball. Polyprimitive. And we will want to change its position as well at the end. This is going to be 60. And let's give it a name. Do you guys have suggestions for any names? We'll do Spam and Eggs. So you can run all this, and yay, it does work. Cool. Which is different from this. Yet they are different pieces of geometry. You can see that this one is 5-sided polygons, and this one is 6-sided. 6-sided polygons. So they are different primitives. They are very similar, but they are different. So those are all the primitives I'm going to be creating today, and that should give you a good idea of kind of some of the primitives that you can create with code. Also, how to find out the name of different command lines when you are trying to find out a command line that you are not familiar with, and also some issues that you might have with new objects that you are creating inside of Maya that are just really new, so it's not completely integrated yet, and how to go around some of the issues you may have when you run across things like that. So a little bit of creative thinking there. Also, a little bit of proceduralness up here. So repeating this action was taking quite a bit of time. So we added those lines of code so that way we can select and delete everything right away. That will be it for this video. I hope you guys found this at least a little bit useful. Excuse me. And we will see you guys in the next video. Also, if you guys have not seen it yet, on the bottom of the description here, I do have merch for this channel. So check it out, see if it's something that you might be interested in. Anyways, I'll talk to you guys later. Have a good day, everybody. Bye.